Coming up tonight on YCN News, Valley Regional Hospital in Claremont holds its annual meeting. An update on the Keene Pumpkin Festival. And Bradford, New Hampshire police are investigating a home fire. For more news, weather, and sports, it's time for YCN, your local view.
Now, your daily digest of the Dartmouth Lake Sunapee region, southern Vermont, and Windsor County. News, sports, weather, and all that is happening in our area. The news on YCN, your local view.
Good evening. It's Thursday, January 21st. I'm Laura James. Welcome to YCN News. The financial health of Valley Regional Hospital in Claremont is improving, even as it continues to offer new programs and services to the West Central region of New Hampshire and southern Vermont. About 120 people met last night in Claremont's new community center to hear a different kind of State of the Union address, this one focusing on Valley Regional Hospital's strengths and weaknesses. The night's annual meeting, the second year in a row where the meeting was open to the public, included the results of a health survey. Hospital Board of Trustees member Michael O'Connell told the night's audience that while the hospital's cash flow is in excellent shape, the amount of bad debt compared to the state's average is too high. Bad debt includes payment for medical services not yet received or not at the cost of the service's value. The hospital last year lost about $2.4 million. Bad debt accounts for 9.8% of the hospital's expenses compared to 6.5% statewide. Even so, no one is refused care at this facility on Elm Street. Plans are in place to keep the hospital open and operating. From hospital CEO Peter Wright to Dartmouth Hitchcock executive Steve LeBlanc to Hypotherm Corporate Social Responsibility Vice President Barbara Couch to former King Arthur Flowers CEO Steve Voigt, the night's attendees learned the hospital's future lies in its ties to the community and the community's strong ties to each other, including the businesses and healthcare providers that remember their companies don't employ workers, they employ people. Director of Community Engagement for Valley Regional, Rolf Olson, recaps the meeting for YCN News.
I was really energized by tonight's meeting. I think it was really good to have a good turnout from the community. This is our second open public annual meeting. In the past they were all closed and held at the hospital, but to get out into the community and see the number of people and feel their enthusiasm is really great. I think that the results of the survey give Claremont and Sullivan County a direction to move towards. That it's the clear direction between good personal health and living habits and cutting down the cost of healthcare overall, not to mention giving people the opportunity to enjoy living more effectively if they stop smoking, lose weight, and take care of themselves. It's pretty exciting, this is.
Last night's meeting also included the results of the community-wide survey completed by 518 adults who live or work in Claremont. That number comprises 3% of the adult population. Women made up 76% of respondees, compared to 24% for men. 40% of people aged 45 to 64 completed the survey, and those ages 25 to 44 made up 36% of respondees. 16% of the responses were from men and women ages 65 to 84. Dartmouth Institute Director Dr. Elliot Fisher reviewed the survey, noting that while 91% of respondents described themselves as in good to excellent health, the number of people in the region who are overweight remains a problem. Barriers to getting medical care, including paying for it, finding a local provider, especially family or primary health care doctors, and the time to get medical care. Answers to one question remain troubling for Fisher, who described the number of people who answered that they don't have or believe they have enough money to meet daily living expenses. 1 in 4 people answered yes to that question. For now, the Keene Pumpkin Festival remains viable, yet safety and security costs remain a sticking point between Keene City officials and event organizers. That according to New Hampshire Public Radio. Let It Shine Incorporated, the nonprofit organizer behind the annual Pumpkin Festival, wants the city and Keene State College leaders to take control of students and college grounds during the event. Let It Shine directors say they should be responsible for the event as it takes place in the city's downtown on Main Street. If this arrangement can be worked out, Let It Shine would no longer request financial help from the city to put on the October event, which typically draws thousands of visitors to Keene on a weekend before Halloween. NHPR reports the city gave $52,000 last year and $35,000 the year before. Off-campus students' riots marred this year's event and brought negative attention to the day and night. To that end, if the city and festival hosts agree on the new arrangement, Let It Shine will kick in 2/3 of the $90,000 in overtime costs to the city. That's from police overtime costs to taxpayers to clean up after the festival and quell the alcohol-fueled riots. In other local news, a family from Bradford, New Hampshire, who lost their home to a fire could use your help. Shortly after 1 a.m. Tuesday, first responders went to a home on West Meadow Road on a report of a fire and once on the scene saw flames shooting through the structure. That according to WNTK. To help, call the Bradford Police Department on Route 114. You can reach them at 603-938-2522 so that someone can meet you to receive the items. The family has 3 school-aged children. Bradford Police Sergeant Ed Shaughnessy tells WNTK the family needs everything. They are staying in a relative's home. After the break, we'll have an update on the FairPoint strike.
The YCN News continues in a moment.
Welcome back to YCN News. I'm Laura James. Independent Senator from Vermont, Bernie Sanders, is introducing a constitutional amendment to undo a Supreme Court ruling allowing unrestricted and secret campaign spending by corporations. Sanders says the 2010 U.S. Supreme Court ruling in Citizens United versus the Federal Election Commission has opened the floodgates to companies being able to contribute millions of dollars to candidates whom they support. Vermont and 15 other states, along with voters and city councils in more than 600 cities and towns across the U.S., already have passed measures supporting a constitutional amendment to this ruling. The Brennan Center for Justice reports that since the United Citizens decision 5 years ago, super PACs or political action committees have spent more than $1 billion, and almost 60% of that money came from just 195 donors and their spouses. A similar constitutional amendment was introduced by Sanders in the last session of Congress. An amendment originating in Congress must be approved by a 2/3 majority in the House and Senate in order to be submitted for consideration by the states. Ratification by 3/4 of the states is required to amend the Constitution. Members of the Vermont and New Hampshire congressional delegation need to know if FairPoint is up to task to handle any emergencies while workers remain on strike. U.S. Senators Patrick Leahy, Bernie Sanders, Jeanne Shaheen, and U.S. Representatives Peter Welch and Annie Kuster are asking the Federal Communications Commission to determine if enough workers remain on FairPoint staff to handle any electrical outages and 911 calls. Power lines must be open and fully running for calls for service to be handled by first responders, especially during the winter. Since this labor impasse began, FairPoint's networks and equipment have failed with increasing frequency, and complaints from the company's customers have soared, the lawmakers wrote. We are particularly alarmed that problems with FairPoint's network have caused service outages for police departments, fire departments, and other critical public safety agencies across both New Hampshire and Vermont. As noted in yesterday's broadcast, the delegates from both states weighed in on President Barack Obama's State of the Union address. You can find those statements on our blog at wycu.wordpress.com. Police in Newfane, Vermont seek the public's help regarding a burglary of power tools from a home on Grout Road. The homeowner reported the break-in yesterday morning shortly before 9 a.m. It's believed the burglary took place between January 17th and 19th. Those with any information are encouraged to contact Trooper Dan Bennett at 802-254-2382. When YCN News returns, we'll join Sean Bowman of Kearsarge Chronicle, who spoke with Ben Dabrowski of Kearsarge Winter CSA.
The YCN News continues in a moment.
Welcome back to YCN News. Looks like we could see a flurry or two around the region tomorrow morning, but for the next couple of days, at least it seems pretty quiet weather-wise. Let's check that forecast now with Matt.
Thanks, Laura. Very light snow could be on the horizon, but we will, for the most part, experience cloudy skies. Tonight will be mostly cloudy with a low around 12. Thursday will be mostly cloudy with a high near 29. Thursday night will be partly cloudy with a low around 11. Friday will turn into mostly sunny skies with a high near 27. And Friday night will be partly cloudy with a low around 18 degrees. And now it's time for our YCN community calendar. On Friday, there will be another Sunapee Coffee House performance at the United Methodist Church at 7 p.m. The guest artist is Grace Morrison. In Hanover, there will be astronomical observing at the Shattuck Observatory from 8 to 10. On Saturday, there will be a Brattleboro Winters Farmers Market from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Robert H. Gibson River Garden. Remember, you can submit local events from your community by sending them to news@ycnnow.com. We have a few game results on today's edition of YCN Sports. In girls basketball, Bow High School faced Stevens High School yesterday. Bow conquered Stevens 48-26. In a twin state matchup, Windsor, Vermont took on Newport High School in New Hampshire. Although a close game, Newport showed their skill and came out on top 59-52. There was a local boys basketball game yesterday between Hanover and Milford. Hanover won 56-41 against their opponent.
Thanks, Matt. John O'Connor is host of YCN's Capital Connections and had the chance to sit down with Neil Kirk, who's chaired the New Hampshire House Finance Committee representing District 2. Well, the New Hampshire budget, the economy, all topics of conversation. We'll have that interview coming up.
The YCN News continues in a moment.